there, my name is Sylvie and I am a writer. I have a website, sylviesoul.com, but we're not going to talk about any of that today. I'm actually coming on to do another one of my more impromptu videos. I wanted to talk about Hey Arnold. Why do I want to talk about Hey Arnold? Well, it's because October 7th, 2021 will mark the 25th anniversary of the premiere of Hey Arnold, one of my most favorite shows. And so I thought I would just get on and just be a little candid and, talk about my favorite and least favorite episodes of Hey Arnold. I have been a fan since day one, and I have been writing fan fiction about Hey Arnold for about 20 years. But yeah, we're not talking about that today. This is all about Hey Arnold. I just wanted to go off the cuff and just talk about some of the things that make the show so great and some of the things that I wish you could sweep under the rug. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to discuss the top 5 best and top 5 worst episodes of Hey Arnold. I got my trusty book here. So I'm gonna start with the worst episodes of Hey Arnold. These are episodes that they're not terrible, but they're really not. I would watch them once and then never again. So I made a list and I'm just gonna go over in no particular order, but these are like my least favorite episodes, and I'll go into a bit of detail on why. First one I want to talk about is Helga's Masquerade. It's a season 5 episode. If you're a fan of Hey Arnold, you know who Helga is. Helga Chipataki. She's this tough blonde-haired bully who's insanely in love with Arnold, and the whole course of the show is basically centered around her trying to keep this obsessive crush a secret. So things come to a head in the episode Helga's Masquerade. Helga is exhibiting jealousy towards Lila, and that Arnold is just so infatuated with her and it appears to like Lila a lot more than she likes herself. So in a really weird twist of fate, because normally Helga exhibits this behavior that leads one to believe she doesn't care what other people think. Well, in this one, she's like, okay, what can I do to make Arnold like me more? So she actually goes to Lila and asks her to train her to be more like her. So, Helga shadows Lila. She tries to imitate Lila. And also, one thing I forgot to mention, there's a bit of a side story going on with Rhonda doing a masquerade party. I don't think it has anything to do with Halloween. She just wants to do a costume party. So the climax of the episode comes when Helga arrives at the masquerade dressed exactly like Lila, and it's creepy. So not only is she affecting the same behavior as Lila, she is essentially Lila. And what's even more bizarre is Arnold really is fascinated with this transformed Lila or transformed Helga and wants to spend the entire evening with her. So everyone's freaked out except, of course, Lila, who's flattered, and Arnold. But then when Arnold is speaking to Helga, he calls her Lila because that's essentially who Helga's imitating. So Helga is suddenly turned off by the whole ordeal and goes back to being herself. The second she does that, Arnold is suddenly like, "Oh, I gotta go be somewhere else," and it just like totally ditches her. And it's a really sad episode. I mean, they try to sum it up at the end, saying that Arnold would wish that Helga would act more like Lila, and Helga takes that positively, but I don't like what they do to my girl in this one. It's a cringy episode. It's not a great ending. It's probably one of my least favorite Helga episodes of the series. So Helga's Masquerade season 5, don't like it. Another episode I don't like is School Dance. School Dance is a season 3 episode. For the record, I love season 3. Personally, I think season 3 is probably one of the best, strongest, consistently good seasons of all 5 seasons of Hey Arnold. But there's this one episode. It's not good. Um, it's, it's, its problem comes with its School Dance is very straightforward to the point where it's boring, to the point where it's nothing. It's the most straightforward episode you can imagine. Arnold's having a school dance. He's in charge of finding the entertainment. He wants to pick Dino Spumoni. Dino Spumoni doesn't want to do it, but he does it anyway. The kids find out. They don't want him to come, but they'll take him anyway. Dino Spumoni comes and performs. He sucks. Everybody hates him. Arnold gives him a talking to. Dino Spumoni apologizes. He sings better songs, and people are happier. And that's it. There's nothing that goes on in this episode. And I actually like the episode. I like the character Dino Spumoni. Dino Spumoni is a funny character. He's like this Rat Pat Frank Sinatra type guy, and he's in a lot of good episodes. He's in the season 1 The Old Building. He's in Partners. He has his own episode to himself later on in the series, Dino Checks Out, which is an amazing non holiday special devoted to the character. He's a good character, but I don't know. Maybe they were just having an off day when they wrote The School Dance, because it's such a nothing of an episode. I actually did a list of my least favorite episodes in the past, and I actually forgot to add this episode because it left such little impact on me. So for that reason, School Dance is another one of the worst Hey Arnold episodes. Next episode I want to talk about is Love and Cheese from season 4. So if you've seen season 1's Operation Ruthless, you've seen Love and Cheese. It's literally the same episode. The only difference is they've swapped out Ruth with Lila. So it's a cheese festival. Helga finds out that Lila and Arnold are going together, and she wants to sabotage it. The slight difference here also is it's just Helga trying to sabotage. Phoebe and Gerald, I think, are doing their own thing throughout this episode, so it's just Helga on this rampage to destroy this date, I guess. And I don't like this episode also because Helga's this close to committing murder. There's a scene where it's established Lila can't swim, and they're doing a water ride, and they end up in this area where Lila could conceivably drown. And Helga does nothing to help. She does this kind of sort of just watching in the shadows, kind of the Phil Collins. She's watching in the shadows. It's like, oh boy, I gotta see how this ends. And yeah, it was done well in Operation Ruthless, and I understand that imitation is the highest form of flattery, but they did not need to do this episode again. It was much better in Operation Ruthless. So yeah, do not like Love and Cheese. Second last episode of the worst I want to talk about is Bag of Money. Bag of Money is a season 5 episode. It's a weird episode. It deals with Arnold and Gerald's friendship. There's a lot of episodes similar to that. Gerald's Game, Part-Time Friends. There's a lot of episodes that test the strength of Arnold's and Gerald's friendship. And this is one that really pushes it to the limit, almost too far in my opinion. So Arnold, Gerald, and Sid stumble upon a large bag of money. So they're all deciding what they're going to do with the money, what they're going to do with it. And so I believe they decide they want to sleep on it, so they let Arnold hold it because they consider Arnold a trustworthy stand-up guy. So in a bizarre, unlikely turn of events, Arnold somehow loses the money because he sits next to this really bizarre looking woman who has the exact same bag, and the bags end up getting swapped. So Arnold no longer has the money, and Sid accuses him of stealing the money and keeping it for himself. So the whole episode is basically Sid following Arnold around, pointing and accusing and calling him a thief and a liar. And as this is going on, Gerald's kind of caught in the middle because he wants to believe his friend when he gives the story that this weird woman with like one eye and like purple hair took the bag, or I think it was a peg leg. I don't know. There's some weird feature on her that she had aside from the weird hair. Took the bag by mistake, and Sid's harping on Arnold and getting the rest of the class to gang in. So there's this point where Arnold approaches Gerald and asks, like, "Do you believe me?" And Gerald's like, "Not really." And then Arnold's like, "Well, I guess we can't be friends anymore." And I'm like, that's so sad. It was such a weird, bizarre turn of events for the episode, and it's just like, oh my god, like they're not going to be friends. And I don't think they would have been friends had not at the very end of the episode this weird woman comes out of nowhere, finds Arnold, and hands him the bag of money. And then so everyone's just like, oh, okay, sorry, Arnold. And then Sid's like, oh, okay. They forgive him way too easily. And I guess the episode ends on a high note because Arnold and Gerald are still friends, but it's a mean-spirited episode. Like I feel so bad watching that episode. It's not really that not a fun watch. So Bag of Money, don't like it. And the last episode I want to talk about. The last episode I want to talk about, and I hate this episode to my core. Phoebe's Little Problem. I like the character Phoebe. I think she's great. I think she's a great foil or a great partner to Helga's kind of ferocity and just like passion. And I just like her character. I feel towards the end of Hey Arnold, I guess they didn't know what to do with her character. I mean, they put her in a lot of weird situations that, I don't know, like they they really like to attack the girl. I think she was in Phoebe Skips or Phoebe Breaks a Leg. It's just, like, Phoebe undergoes a lot of weird misfortune in the later seasons of the show. And I think this episode takes the cake. So, sidebar, they'd been setting up throughout the entire series that Phoebe and Gerald kind of have a thing. It's never explicitly said, but it's hinted at in the show. So when I first, like way back before like, you know, like when the internet was young, I guess, when I read about this episode, they don't reveal a lot about the episode through the title, Phoebe's Little Problem. So my mind's wandering of like, okay, the show's almost done. This is the final season of Hey Arnold. Phoebe's Little Problem. Is that problem a crush? Is she finally going to admit to her feelings for Gerald? So I was actually excited for this episode when it came out. And they actually, I don't know, like the tension and the build up to what the episode was supposed to be about was actually quite exciting. Like Phoebe wakes up and like, you know, she's going about her day, and they're talking about how like she's so punctual and she's such a good kid or whatever. And so they have this like assembly where she wins an award for being the most punctual kid in class or never missing a day of school. So I'm like, okay, is this going to be one of those things where like her crush kind of consumes her nature and suddenly she's like underperforming or she's just distracted? That'd be kind of cool. Well, Phoebe goes up the stage. She has her mic. She thanks the audience. She does a bow a few times, and then she farts into a mic. And then she farts into the mic. And that's the episode. The episode's basically her being mortified that she did that and decides she's never going to come to school again. So the whole episode is basically all the kids trying to convince her to, you know, not be this depressed sad sack and come back to school. To this episode's credit, it has one of the best lines from Helga. I can't say it verbatim, but it's like Helga goes to try to console Phoebe, and it's like this 10-second exchange. And it's just the way she delivers it. It's actually probably one of my like the funniest scenes with Helga. So that's the only saving grace to this episode, but everything else about it just infuriates me. And what I heard also, I heard a rumor that there's supposed to be like in the original scene for this episode, it's Arnold that goes to Phoebe and, you know, talks her out of this funk and has, no pun intended, Arnold talks her out of being so depressed and decides to and convinces Phoebe to, go back to school. It was supposed to be Gerald, from what I heard. I don't know if that's confirmed or not, but I heard originally the scene was supposed to be a touching scene between Gerald and Phoebe, which would have made more sense. But for whatever reason, that was changed at the last minute, because I guess it's Arnold's show. But I think the biggest kicker about this, and it didn't even really affect me directly, but because I was living in Canada at the time, but apparently this was the last new episode that fans of the show had seen. Here in Canada, we saw everything, all the episodes came out, and then Hey Arnold, the movie, came out. But I think in the States it was a little different. The movie came out, and then there was still like a season or so of episodes that hadn't been released, so they just slowly metered them out after the movie. And so by some twist of fate, Phoebe's Little Problem became the very last new episode that anyone saw of Hey Arnold until the Jungle movie in 2017. And that is a terrible, terrible legacy to end on. So for that reason, for everything I've mentioned, Phoebe's Little Problem, to me, is the worst Hey Arnold episode. Okay, so now I want to talk about some of my favorite episodes of Hey Arnold. So this is the top 5 favorites that I like of the show. No particular order. I do want to caveat this. I should have said this earlier with my least favorite. This is just my opinion as a fan. I'm sure already I've probably angered a lot of people with some of my choices, but yeah, I just want to emphasize this. Some of my choices might be a bit controversial, but this is my list, so yeah. And I say that because one of the first episodes I want to put on my list for best episodes is not on a lot of people's lists, but I'm keeping it, dang it. It's World Records. World Records is a season 1 episode. It's an episode with a simple but fun premise. Arnold wants to break a Guinness World Record. So he teams up with Gerald, and then eventually they team up with their friends, then eventually they team up with the entire town or the entire neighborhood in order to break a world record. And it's a simple episode. It's not really heavy. It's full of humor. But I love this episode so much. I mean, if I can be biased, and I'll just say right off the bat, this is my favorite episode, like, of the entire series of Hey Arnold. Love World Records. And I love it because it's got everything. I mean, you think of the episode like the pilot, like 24 Hours to Live, where it kind of gives you a feel of what the show is going to be about. You get a feel of Arnold and Helga and some of the friends, and you get what you watch the episode 24 Hours Live, and you know what Hey Arnold's about. I think World Records works in the same way, but even better. So you see all the characters interacting, you get the kids, you get the neighborhood, you get Helga with her Helgaisms. It's the perfect episode to me. It encapsulates everything that I love about the show. And I never see anyone mention this episode, but something about it just really tugs on my heartstrings. And it's, to me, World Records is the best episode, but if you don't agree with that, it's at very least in the top 5. Okay, so now I'm going to pick a more conventional few episodes. So Parents' Day, season 5. Everyone knows Parents' Day. Like, when the show Hey Arnold first started, Arnold lived with his grandparents in the boarding house. So they made a very brief reference to his folks, but we don't see their face. We don't know much about them. So there's this lingering mystery that goes on until like halfway to or to the end of the show, until Parents' Day. And so Parents' Day is a half-hour special that deals with Arnold going through his emotions and going through his complicated feelings with having his grandma and grandpa act as his parents. So we do learn a little bit about the folks in this one, Stella and Miles. Originally, Arnold's grandpa would tell all these fantastical stories about how amazing they were. So I think Arnold sits his grandparents down and actually asks them to give a more concrete story about who they are. And so he does. He tells them that his mother was a botanist and his father was an archaeologist. And So we learn a little bit more, and we learned that they went away to try to help people in San Lorenzo and never returned. And it's a very bittersweet and very somber and kind of sad episode. I don't watch that one very much because the ending makes me cry so much. That soundtrack, that score from Jim Lang, I'm like, oh my God, it's sad. But it's an important episode, and it's an amazing episode. So Parents' Day. And piggybacking off that, I'm going to loop these next two together. It's The Journal parts 1 and 2. So this is a full hour episode because part 1 is 30 minutes, part 2 is 30 minutes, or 20, it's full episode. So this is the big kahuna. This is the one that was supposed to come out leading up to the Jungle movie, which we had to wait like 15 years for. But this is the movie this is the episode that had come out that really got in depth on the history of Stella and Miles. Because if you remember, with Parents' Day, there's a lingering sense of doubt if Arnold's grandpa is still flubbing the truth when he speaks to Arnold. So in this one, it's a bit more concrete. It's October 5th, which is an infamous day where Arnold's parents leave and never come back. And so Arnold's fed up waiting for them, and he gets this really disillusioned state, and he decides he's going to put away everything that reminds him of his parents and just lock it up in the attic. And as he's about to do that, he stumbles upon his father's journal. So the whole episode is kind of a bit of a bottle episode of sorts, where Arnold and his grandpa with his grandma jumping in from time to time, they're all in the living room, and Arnold's grandpa's reading him this journal. So we learn, this is from the perspective of Miles because it's his journal, but we learn how he met Arnold's mother. We learn all the amazing adventures they had while they were in San Lorenzo. And it's a gorgeous episode. It's a funny episode. It's like everything about it. It's like they went all out for this episode because, as you know, it ends with Arnold finding the map leading to San Lorenzo, and that was supposed to lead to the Jungle movie. So it would be crazy not to add this to my favorite list. This one is a solid lock for one of my favorites. So if you watch nothing else about Hey Arnold, you watch The Journal. You're sure to be satisfied. Okay, next episode I want to talk about. I think I put too many. Okay, sorry. Season 2. What's Opera? Ooh. I'm going to make a controversial choice, guys. I had put originally Helga on the Couch, and that seems the obvious choice. There's a lot of obvious choices that you'd put in the top 5. I'm not putting that on my list. Yeah, sorry, you heard me. What? Anyway, no. I'm going to talk about Season 2's What's Opera Arnold. So What's Opera Arnold is, the kids are going on a field trip. They're going to see an opera. Arnold and Helga fall asleep, and they each have their own little fantasies of the opera, and everyone's singing, and so it's a musical episode. And normally I don't like musicals, but this episode just feels like everyone had so much fun doing it. Like they got to be a little crazy because it was a dream episode. The music's funny, the scenes and the set pieces are great. You see Helga with her golden magic slingshot. It's a great episode. I personally would put this above Helga on the Couch. Sorry. It's a special episode, and then they have like the end where they change the ending credits, and they have all the kids singing like an alternate verse to one of Curly's earlier songs, and it's great. I love it. It's just a fun episode, and it feels like everyone probably had a lot of fun doing this episode. So What's Opera Arnold? That's my 4th choice. Okay, and the last episode I'm going to add, I have to add, I'm sorry, Arnold's Christmas. And I think this one is important. I think it should be on everyone's list. It's a great episode. It's a season 1 episode, and it's, Arnold during Christmas. He picks Mr. Wynn for Secret Santa, and he's trying to find Mr. Wynn is one of the boarders at the house he lives at, but he's trying to find a present for Mr. Wynn, and as he talks to him, he finds out that Wynn was living in Vietnam during the war, and around that time he had lost track of his daughter. So the episode is Arnold and Gerald going to this government guy and Mr. Bailey and trying to get Mr. Bailey to search up my Wynn. That's Mr. Wynn's daughter. So Mr. Bailey only agrees to help if Arnold and Gerald finish his Christmas shopping, which is like just like the day before Christmas, which is insane. But Arnold decides he's going to do it, and so they go around the city trying to find everything on the list. Side story, Helga's trying to find the perfect gift for Arnold. And she's going around, she's thinking too flashy, she's thinking maybe too expensive, too not authentic enough. So she eventually finds what Arnold's looking for, and coincidentally, it's the one item on Arnold's list in order to find Mr. Wynn's daughter that he couldn't get. So Helga has to make this choice. Does she keep the gift that was meant for her, or does she give it to Arnold? And it's a great episode. And what I love about Arnold's Christmas, it's one of those special episodes that transcends generations or just transcends the show. Like there's always Christmas shows that you can watch at the end of the year. So there's the Simpsons Christmas, or the Fairly Odd Parents Christmas, or I always bring up A Wish for Wings that would work, the Bloom County kind of opus Christmas. Christmas episodes are special and they can be watched every year and enjoyed. And I think Arnold's Christmas is one of those timeless episodes of Hey Arnold, where even if you don't watch Hey Arnold, you can appreciate and respect what it is. So this went on way longer than I expected. I just wanted to gush a bit about Hey Arnold because, as I said, this is the 25th anniversary of Hey Arnold, and I really hope, cross fingers, that we get some exciting news this year, because 25 years, it's a lot. So yeah, this is all I wanted to say for today. If you like what I talk about, leave me a comment. If you want me to go back again to talking about writing, you could also say that. And once again, be sure to subscribe. Check out the website sylviesoul.com. And yes, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.